Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I will be talking about the brush tool. So by default, when you open Paint 3D, it'll open the brush menu. It'll show a bunch of different brushes that you can use. Over here you have a thickness slider and an opacity slider. You also have the color palette and you also have the texture selector. So I'll start off with the marker. This is how the marker looks when I draw it. The marker is just a solid line. It's nothing fancy. I can change the opacity. It'll become a little less opaque. And the thickness will just increase how thick it is. And if I just want to change the color, I could just click on this color palette to whatever color I want to choose, and I can just draw. So let's say I'll draw like a small little trophy. And let's change it to a rough shape of trophy. Okay, it's not really a trophy, but let's just say that's a shape that I made. And instead of just coloring it in, this is another tool. You can use a fill tool. The fill tool will just fill any shape that you have. So it just filled that up. And as long as it's closed, so if it's like this, even though it's a small space here, it will not fill it up. See? Now I'll move on to the calligraphy pen tool. The calligraphy pen tool is like a calligraphy pen. At some points it's thick, at some points it gets thinner, so when you go a little faster, it gets a little thinner. The calligraphy pen tool, I would suggest it on using it for abstract art. It just gives that feel of abstract art. And if I just want to change the color, let's say red, just change the color. And this is how it looks at about 45 opacity or 50 opacity. As you can see, it's a little more transparent. And then I can adjust the thickness. Thickness will just make it thicker or thinner. Okay, now I'll move on to the oil brush. The oil brush is like an oil brush. As you can see, it has like this texture with lines in it. So it would be used well for oil brush painting. So let's say you don't have an oil brush at home, you can digitally make the painting that you want to make. And then I can just change the color over here. So let's say I just made a yellow or gold. It'll just do the same thing. And when you overlap it, it's just gonna overlap. It won't, like, this won't be above. It's just gonna overlap. And I'll move on to the watercolor. The watercolor is just like a watercolor brush. As you can see, it's like watery. So if you want to make a smaller watercolor painting, like digitally, this would be a good tool to use. And if you just overlap it more and more, it'll become more opaque. And if you want to, you can even make it more opaque using this. So just a little bit, just a bit. You don't really notice it, but it's a bit more opaque than this. This one is a little bit more opaque than this. And same for thickness, just like any other tool that I'm going to use here. It's just the same thing. Now I'll move on to the pixel pen. For the pixel pen, I will zoom in a little bit so you can see how it actually looks. So as you can see, if I zoom in a little more, this is made of pixels. So if you want to make like pixel art, this would be the perfect tool to use. And if I just change color, it'll change the color just like any other thing. And now I'll move on to the pencil tool. The pencil tool looks like a pencil, so if you want to make it look like someone wrote something, so like hello, like really bad handwriting, or like hello. It's really hard to do it on a computer, but this looks a little better than this. So if you want to make it look like a pencil, you can use the pencil tool, and it would be very helpful in certain circumstances. So yeah, and I can change the thickness. So if you want to make it look like a thicker pencil, so if I put on max, these lines are going to be a little thicker than each other. So this one's thin. It's hard to notice, but this one's thinner than these two, and this one's thicker than these two. So for now, I'll reset my view, and now comes to the eraser tool. So let's say I made a mistake. So I was drawing like, let's say I just make a quick car, not a good car, but just a quick car, and then oh, I made a mistake there, right? So I can use an eraser, and depending on how big the eraser you want it, you can use a thickness bar, and it'll be that thick. So as you can see, I can erase it, and it'll be very useful if you make any mistake. So if I just draw this again, and I can just do some wheels, and then as you can see, it's not good drawing, but it just helps a little bit when you make a small little mistake. Now I'll move on to the crayon tool. The crayon tool just looks like a crayon. So if I change the color to red, it'll look just like a crayon. As you can see, it gives that texture of a crayon. So if you want to like make any art that looks like a crayon, that's like drawn with a crayon, this would be the perfect tool. Thickness, just the same deal as everything else. Opacity, also the same deal. As you can see, this is a little more opaque than this. I can even change the texture to different textures. I'm not sure how well it works with all these tools, but yeah. Now I will move on to the spray can. The spray can is just like a spray can. So as you can see, you can like spray, you can give like a spray kind of texture. And the cool thing with the spray can is that if you hold it in one spot, it'll just keep on being more opaque. And since I changed up the opacity, it looks a little more, this one looks a little more opaque than this. So I hope you enjoyed my video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you're notified when new videos of mine come out. Goodbye.